Well, good evening. Welcome to the June 5th, 2023 meeting of the Yarmouth Board of Health. The first item on our agenda would be attendance. So I'm Hillard Bosky, I'm present. Mary, just raise your hand and say if you're here. Okay, Eric.
Present.
Okay, all right. Charlie does not appear to be. And did you hear from him or?
I have not.
Okay, all right. So, public comment, and that is, I can read the little blurb here. The open meeting law discourages public bodies from discussing topics not listed on the agenda. The public should therefore not expect the board to respond to questions or statements made during the public comment portion of the meeting. Usually we'll address anything to some degree. If someone wants to come forward, whether they're present or they are Zooming in for this meeting, which is certainly an option for people. So, do we have anyone in the queue? Because I don't see anyone lining up here in Town Hall. Anyone? Anything? If not, we're going to move on here. Okay, second item. And we have an interview tonight for the open position for the Board of Health. It's an opportunity to meet. It's Barbara Potts, who's our candidate, who's coming in. Just have a seat at the table, and just you can state your name for the minutes, the record, whatever.
Okay, my name is Barbara Potts.
Okay, great. Thank you for coming in. It's nice that people are interested in perhaps joining us. Generally, what we want to see is certainly for the person to ask the board members some questions. And if the board members have any questions, want to know a little bit about you as well, that's sort of what we're here for tonight.
So what is the most difficult part of being on the board?
I think it's making some decisions that perhaps can be not felt like they're in the best interest of an individual, but
Okay.
for the overall town
Okay.
and public good, they are.
Okay,
So I think it's really important that we're very clear about regulations and policy so
Okay.
that people don't find themselves in the position where they have to come before us and have us levy fines or
okay.
disciplinary action.
So do we, we have the statutes and everything, so when do those get changed? Is there a certain, they stay for a certain amount of years and then they get changed, or?
Well, we review them as necessary, particularly when a topic comes up, because we don't address every topic every meeting,
Right.
obviously. And there is a process. We discuss them over a number of meetings and revise or promulgate, and then they're posted, and we have hearings so that people can come in and voice their opinion
Right.
or give suggestions or criticisms or whatever. And then they're finalized at a later meeting by
Okay.
vote. And
By
then,
vote, okay.
depending on what they're about, they're distributed. For example, for tobacco regulations, then the
Yes.
tobacco inspector in the department would bring out copies of the new regulations to all of the establishments as
Yep,
he
I'm
went around.
familiar with that.
Right.
In that I ran a ExxonMobil station.
Okay, so, yes,
I'm familiar with a lot of different
okay.
things.
Anything, what do you want to add?
Well, the regulations are helpful in regard to what you're saying, is that it allows us to follow some rules. We may not have written them necessarily, but they're there, and it helps us to treat everyone the same, equally.
Yes,
Because people come in with their own scenarios. It could be a tobacco violation, whatever, and just trying to make sure everyone is treated the same.
yes.
That's really important for me personally. I think the
Yeah, it's
board
fair
as
and
well.
honest, yeah.
And that can be difficult. People are unlucky sometimes,
Yes. Yeah,
and I find that difficult. And
Okay.
so regulations are great that way. And the regulations have changed, certainly over the years that I've been on the board. I think
Okay.
they've improved. Sometimes they're out of date.
yeah, right.
And it's helpful when a subject comes up and we have to look at them again.
What what do you think has been the most,
Just one second. Okay, it's 5:37, just for the record, that Charlie came. He's at the meeting. I'm sorry to
so
interrupt.
has the COVID situation been the most difficult thing you've had to deal with as of late? Or regulations or changes and,
Mary, Eric?
The most ongoing one, certainly. I mean, the
Yeah.
longest situation.
okay,
Maybe not the most acute situation, but
okay,
the longest one.
the longest
yes,
one,
yeah.
yeah.
Because that there are certainly
Updates. all the
opinions
time.
out there, people that believe the science and people who don't, and people who, don't want government interference.
Right.
And people
I
who are
understand
happy to
that,
have
yeah.
some oversight over what people are doing so they don't spread a disease. So,
Yes,
There was certainly a complexity to it.
yeah.
right,
Very different than anything else that this board has addressed, at
yeah,
least while
never
I've been on.
happened before, yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
things
Right.
change too, very much.
Yeah, I wasn't here in 1918 for the flu. Yeah, yes, so.
Neither was I.
No, okay.
Okay,
Eric, what's difficult to be on the board? Anything?
I think Mary really put things into perspective, but one thing that I know we always try to keep in mind is the mission statement of the board. So can be challenging to sort of keep our own feelings and biases out of certain things and remember what we're doing here. We're interested in public health and the health of our community, and I try to keep that at the forefront, when there's difficult decisions to make. And Mary, I think you just did a wonderful job explaining that, it can be difficult with tobacco regulations or things like that, or issues that can be politicized, shouldn't necessarily be. I just think it's important to keep our mission at mind,
And I think we try to be evidence-based, and we don't make
yes,
decisions that
Right.
aren't based on
opinion or,
good research and good, good evidence that the things that we promulgate work.
yes, the best,
Sometimes we've been the leader, which is very,
the best for the community.
Yeah, I mean, we don't see ourselves as experts. We're volunteers. We have an interest in health issues. Some of us have backgrounds in it. And, if we don't know something, we do the research to get educated.
Yes,
Once again, looking out for the public, for their health as well as the environment, which is another part of our responsibility here. Ultimately, we answer to the state, actually.
okay.
Charlie, anything else you want to add?
Hey, what?
Anything you want to add? It was just the question came up about any difficult issues or things that are challenging to be on the board.
No.
Anything? Okay, all right.
why are you interested in being on the board?
Well, I was born and raised in this town, and I would like to, I have a lot of knowledge. I've worked in a bunch of different types of business. I've been a retail manager for 25 years, so I'm very good with, if there is some sort of conflict and, we have to talk to people, I'm very good with that. I've, hired and trained thousands of people in my lifetime, dealing with customers, and I'm a banker by trade also, for the last 8 years. So once I got out of retail, I got my investment licenses, so I understand that world. I also, during COVID, I was asked to be part of the PPP loan process to help our small business customers secure money for their businesses. And I was a small business association administrator. for Santander Bank. So I worked at home for 10 months doing that, and I was asked back 3 times to do that, so that was a stressful time as well.
Imagine.
Yes, customers calling very, upset, trying to get the help they need, and, so I did, thousands of applications, because we have customers through the whole Northeast, 800 branches. So I was the one that talked to the customers and all the irate ones, because I'm very good on the phone, good with people. And I also worked in the fraud and the risk and, all those types of things. So there's a lot of things that, I know how to do. I think I would, I'd be helpful to the town and the board, and, I know a lot about the town, and I love it. Like I say, I lived here my whole life.
Tell me about, it says Massachusetts Life and Health License, what is that?
Yeah, I have my life insurance and health insurance license. I'm trained in long-term care, annuities, disability, and all those types of plans as well as investments.
Okay. We generally are meeting twice a month. It's Monday evenings. Meetings start at 5:30, and they range from an hour or two generally. That's what they are. If something urgent comes up, we meet more frequently. During the summer, often we'll, reduce the number of meetings. That's sort of the schedule.
Okay.
You are,
I
are you
also have my
full-time?
notary also.
Are you full-time here?
Yeah,
Yes, you're, okay.
yes,
Yep,
yeah.
okay.
I live right down the street.
The point, Mary, being you have to be a full-time, you have to be a resident here,
Yes,
full-time
I've
to be
always-
on a board.
I've always been full-time here,
Wonderful.
except
Right.
when I went to college.
Yeah,
Yeah,
wonderful.
yeah. So I have my notary. I was just going to excerpt that as well. So I've had that for 8 years, so that's something that.
Have you done any other volunteer work in your career?
Yeah, so I used to be, I just rejoined the Hyannis Elks, but I was on the auditing committee in the Elks, and I used to be part of the veterans, and I did a lot of charity work with them, and I was a Rainbow Girl also, so I've done a lot of charity work.
Anything else you can, question-wise for us? I mean, it's a big responsibility, that's all. I mean, there's some time, reading at home, in preparation. There's some site visits, for instance, if someone's putting a septic system in that needs a variance, means that they have
Okay.
special
Yep.
circumstances on the property, and so it
Okay.
means going and looking at the property in
Okay.
preparation for a meeting.
Okay,
If there's an incident, could be at a restaurant, or it could be at a pool, a motel. Sometimes it requires really a site visit, and obviously it's in Yarmouth.
right, yeah, that's fine.
Jay, you think of anything else?
Well, I would, thank you. I would simply say this, the discipline of public health is not passive, right? It's engagement. It's
Yes.
protecting the community and the environment, right?
Yes.
It's protecting the environment.
Yep.
So we're working on a regular basis, and there'll be tonight, working with the public. And sometimes enforcing regulations is difficult.
Yes.
As the chair said, the authority for the board comes from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So there are codes that you'd become familiar with.
Yes,
But one of the things that is difficult is, and each of the board members, Eric, Mary, and Hillard all talked about, is difficult in conflict and things of that nature. How have you dealt with, you have to enforce things,
Yeah,
taking the
that's-
emotion out of this,
that's
and this is very,
that's easy for me, because I worked in a bank, and
yeah,
the people come in irate and freaking out, and I'm one that can calm any people down and
Yep.
get to what the problem is, and get whatever the resolution is, and I'm very good with people and talking to people, so that's not an issue for me.
well, Barbara, that's important, because in this, as you probably well know, as you just
Yeah,
articulated, when there's a lot of emotion, sometimes logic goes out the window,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
the board doesn't have that luxury. They have to stay very focused, be
Yeah.
clear on the facts,
yeah,
and enforce them in a standardized way.
Yeah.
Right.
I've always worked for corporate businesses, and there's, the businesses that I worked in, like I worked for ExxonMobil, that's all, managed by the EPA. There's all kinds of rules, regulations, and worked for banks. There's certain things that we have to abide by. We just can't be, giving out things to people, here's some money, here you go. You have to, follow the policy and procedures.
Right.
So but, you have to present the thing in a good way that, makes the customer happy with, and you can't be insulting them either. You have to explain it to a way that they understand.
That's an important piece. The other part that the board does on a regular basis to educate, right? We engage and we inform, but you educate individuals. Why are the rules and regulations here? Why are these rules here? And this is the body that has to make the difficult decisions.
Yep.
And sometimes it's not a popular.
Yeah.
They're not popular decisions, quite
Right.
frankly. Sometimes there are some meetings where this room is somewhat filled with angry individuals, and they have an opinion on it, right?
Yeah.
And then you have to sort through that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't want to make all the downside, but just to know what you're going, to make an informed decision, more than anything, thanks for stepping forward. But they do have to make some very difficult decisions at times.
Yeah, I understand that, yeah. I have no problem with that. I'm really good with that.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, good.
You're okay with reading before a meeting and taking the material?
Yeah, I'm
because
not a
they're
shy
good about-
person. Yeah.
The staff's good about sending us the material, the backup material, review of the statutes, and
Yeah,
So you
I'm
can
not a
come
shy
in.
person, so I have no problem doing that, so.
Okay.
There's also the issue of following a regulation here, even if on a personal level, you may not agree with it. I mean, that comes up also. We're following regulation, and individual here may not really
that's
support it
fine.
or in favor of it, but it's following what the town rules are.
Way in the bank, I might not agree with some sort of type of account that they are having, and I have to tell the customer that they're now gonna get a fee on their account now, and, I have to, tell them, I just can't not tell them that they're gonna get a fee on their account now. So, you have to explain it in the way that they understand and what the purpose of that is, and you just have to follow that.
Right.
So.
Could I just ask you said you've worked with mobile, banking and a number of different things. Is there any organization that you work with that might present a conflict of interest where you'd have to recuse yourself?
Well, I worked a bunch of retail.
Okay.
I worked at the Gap. Linens and Things is out of business.
No, that wouldn't, I didn't know if you were working in town right now on things. And you know what, that's just a question, and the board members do, what you'd have to do is just.
No, the
you
only
inf-
one that, I had a food service license was ExxonMobil, which is now All Town, the one in New Orleans. That was
Okay.
the only one, yeah.
If there was something, a relative or a business, the perception of that can be, sometimes it comes up, a conflict of interest, or a relative, or somewhere you're connected to a decision-making piece, you just have to
Well, not in
recuse yourself.
Yarmouth, but I have a connection to DPM, but,
Okay.
in Dennis, but
I think the
that would be it.
Yeah, I think the board just wants to give you, it's important, then you step forward, you know the full scope of what
Yeah,
what this is,
yeah.
opportunity, and
Yeah.
the responsibility that goes with this, so,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, thank you for coming in. We have some interest in the position, and we'll move along, and you'll certainly hear from us in the very near future
Okay.
of selecting someone.
Forward to it. I think I can make a good mark on the town and, the way that it should be.
Absolutely.
Wonderful.
thank you.
Great. Thank
Bob,
you
thank
again.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks for coming in, so appreciate it.
thank you.
All right.
Okay. Looks like number 3 here on the agenda, as we're looking at it, it's a hearing. It's tobacco violation. It's a second violation. This is going to require a vote on the part of the board. And the first up looks like it's Peterson's Market. They're located in 918 6A in Yarmouthport. And the violation has to do with the sale of a tobacco product to an individual under the age of 21. Jay, any background information here?
They're not here yet.
Okay.
The second establishment is here. If you
Okay,
could
so
just
let-
take it out of order if you could.
Skip it, that's fine. This is Moonshine Liquors, and they're located at 931 Route 28 in South Yarmouth. And it's the same type of violation. This is a sale of a tobacco product, apparently, for underage 21 person. So,
Just
What else should we be aware of?
in your packet, you have the letter that was sent in bold, second paragraph. You can see that on May 8th of this year, early afternoon, 1:30 in the afternoon, an employee sold to an underage individual through a compliance check done by the Barnstable Tobacco Control Program. And unfortunately, they're really educational visits, but unfortunately, this is now the second violation within a specific period of time. So, I'd like to hear from the establishment.
My name is Steve Jamoulas from Moonshine Liquors, my wife Tula. I got to tell you, we take this very seriously. There's not a day that goes by that I don't, since the first compliance check that we failed, there's not a day that goes by that I don't tell every employee, and this is not a lie, every employee, not a day goes by that I don't mention IDs. And that selling a pack of cigarettes is the same as selling a bottle of liquor. Every single day, every employee. And if I'm not there for the night employees for some reason, I text them, I call them, and I guess when you're dealing with a human element, it's just not 100%. I guess it's just not 100%. This girl, I'm training to be a manager. I trusted her. I really loved her. She's a smart girl, young girl. Why on a Monday afternoon at 1:30 with no one else in the store, how she did this, I just can't fathom. I really can't. I don't understand it, to be honest with you. I mean, I got the kid on camera, and she said, well, he's got a beard. I said, our rule is 35 or less. You can't tell me this kid looks 35 or less. That's our rule. And she said, well, I said, I don't care what he's seen. This is what it is. Why? I just don't understand it. And like I said, when you're dealing with a human element, I guess there's gonna be mistakes made. And the other thing that bothers me about all this is, why isn't she responsible for any of this? I mean, for lack of a better term, she pulled the trigger. Why isn't she sitting here today?
You could have brought her in. So
I could have brought her in, but why didn't you call her in? Why wasn't she made to come in?
Because the license is in your name.
Right. So, which brings me to the fact that they're responsible for nothing. And it's only because of money, because of my license. I'm a license holder, and I can be held responsible. Why isn't she held responsible for this, even if I brought her in? She's not responsible for anything, so she could have a issue with me. I might have had an issue with her in the last week, and she just didn't care to ID the person. It was obvious that she didn't care to. She had all the time in the world. It would have been quicker, because the person you send in can't argue with, I guess. So, do you have an ID? No, I don't, and he leaves. It took longer to say, do you have an ID? And it took longer for her not to ask for an ID and to do the sale than to say, do you have an ID? And he says no and walks out. I just don't get it. And I apologize to the town, to the board. You know, my wife is a daughter of immigrant parents. I'm a daughter of immigrant parents. We grew up knowing to work hard, follow the rules, pay our taxes. And I got to tell you, right now, after the second, I feel like a common criminal after $3,300 worth of fines. And it's just crazy. I don't know what else, you know, we're at a crisis level at the store right now.
Have you thought of some things you could do? I think at one time you used to have one register dedicated to cigarette sales only.
No, we didn't.
Liquor sales only?
No, we didn't.
You didn't?
I heard someone had mentioned to me about having a register that won't ring an alcohol or tobacco sale without an ID, but
Right.
again, they have to ask for it. So the human element comes into play once again. We have a machine to check IDs, mostly for out-of-state IDs, because we really don't know what they look like. You know, there used to be a book years ago, but we have a machine, and it was very expensive, and it's very expensive to keep online, and we do use it. Once again, the human element, they have to ask for it and put it in. So, again, all we can do is apologize to the board, apologize to the town. We take it very seriously. And,
Some folks that have come in, not many, but some have brought the offending employee in, and that some of those people have held that employee accountable for the fine. And I mean, and that's something that they told their employees ahead of time. You know, if there's a fine involved, it will be your responsibility to pay it. I know that doesn't help for your record per se, but it, you know, sometimes you need something that's a little bit more motivating than,
yeah, well, I don't know what, well, for the record, but how do you, most of these people, I mean, it's been a long winter, keeping these people at $22 an hour on. It's been very tough, and this certainly is not helping, but what am I supposed to do? What can I do with them? Make them pay me? How does that work? I suspended this girl for 10 days. I brought her back, but after I wrote the check this morning, I'm not sure I'm gonna bring her back, because she was supposed to work this morning. She was to open this morning and work, and I texted her that, I'm sorry, I'll work myself. I just can't, I'm too nervous to have you there today. And I'm not sure I'm gonna keep her on, and this is the second employee I'm gonna let go now because of this. I don't know if she has learned a lesson and will be more vigilant now, or if a new employee will get it. So, it's tough, to say the least.
I got a call last week from someone in Yarmouth, and an interesting scenario. They went to a liquor store with their daughter. The daughter wanted to buy some wine, and the daughter was asked for ID, and she, what did he say? I think 36 years old. And what she had was her wallet, essentially, is on the phone, not walking around with any hard copy of ID, like a driver's license, all those things. And a lot of the kids do that. A kid, 36-year-old, that's what they do. And I have a couple also where I can show that if I need to, with a credit card, it's on, that kind of thing. So that's going to be another issue.
We just had that issue with alcohol, and we refused it. Flat out
Okay,
refused
it was refused by the
out.
store, even though,
I don't know about this girl. I was there, I'm not sure, I think it was me. We flat out refused it. I said, I have a copy of my license. I don't know if that's the same as you're talking about. I said, absolutely not. No, because we
Yeah.
have a machine. I want to see it, and I want to check it. And the other thing we're having a serious issue with is, I just went to a compliance meeting at the town of Yarmouth at the police station not too long ago, maybe 6 months ago, was it, Tula? And I even have a sign on my door, and I have signs everywhere, that everyone in your group has to have an ID. If 3 people walk in and one's buying and the others look young, I need to see 3 IDs.
Yeah, we just had a lady had a
No,
fit in the
we-
store because we wouldn't
We almost had- we had the
serve
biggest
group
argument.
because she didn't have her ID.
He said, I'm 32 years old, I'm pregnant. I said, I don't know what that has to do with anything. I just need to see an ID. I don't care what color you are, who you are, I just need to see how old you are. That's all I care about. And we get in arguments. It's very hard. I apologize to him, it's tough. And
Yeah.
especially in the summer, groups walk in, college kids now, 5 people walk in. I'm thinking of implementing a 40-year-old or less and have your ID in your hand before you come in the door. And I know at the last meeting, we had talked about, you can do the same as a dispensary does, have the ID, I think we mentioned that, and it gets to a point where I don't think people are gonna remember that and say, oh, I'm not going there. They just, it's a struggle, and it's a seasonal business, and this is our busiest time of the year now, coming up, chance to make ends meet, and it's
for sure.
very hard. I came from a business 37 years off Cape, which was year-round, even though from Thanksgiving to New Year's, we were straight out. This was in Brockton. We were straight out, and I never enjoyed the holidays with my kids growing up, because I was so busy. And I always hated the holidays. My wife says, beautiful time of year, I hate them. And now I gotta tell you, I hate the 4th of July.
A holiday.
It's the big holiday here. It's not Christmas, but it's the big holiday here, so.
Could I,
Believe me, we're working at it as hard as we can, and like I said, when the human element is involved,
Yeah.
it's very difficult.
we all can hear your passion and what you're trying to make this right. So, in no way, as far as you mentioned, you know, you're embarrassed or common criminal, none of that applies here, just so you know that. But please know that. The board understands it completely. But we're just curious, when you do a sale, you talk about this, are you actually scan tobacco, is that, you scan the tobacco into the register? Is there something that would pop up to say, listen, this transaction can't move forward unless an ID is put in? Like, you know how.
We do scan the pack of
You scan the
cigarettes.
package. Is there anything that would trigger, if it's a pack of cigarettes, in that technology, in that?
I'm not sure. My son, who's really into the tech stuff, is looking into that, since someone mentioned to me that the sale won't be made without, he's looking into
Right.
that, but that would have to do with alcohol also. I mean, why would it be just tobacco?
Wonderful, yeah, sure, terrific. You know, and I don't, I'm just thinking off the top, just something to say, hey, listen, you have to have some trust that you can't actually, your employees, when you're not there, and I'm sure you both of you probably put in a lot of hours, more than you'd like.
At this point, yes.
Yeah, I can imagine. I was just thinking, when you're hitting that scan, and that defaults to say, listen, unless a valid ID is put in, this dead ends right now. Is that technology even?
I'm not sure. My son, like I said, my son is way on top of all that. He's looking into it.
Good.
Again, anybody's ID could be put into it. The employee's ID could be put into it.
Yeah, okay, well, now that's,
I
yeah.
don't know. Like I said, when he first did these registers with all this, people can pay with their phones and tap their credit cards. I remember one day, because I'm so old school, I remember one day calling him and saying, "Are you sure we're getting paid?"
Right.
But it's all so new to us.
Yeah.
I've been doing this for 52 years, and it's just, I'm used to registers.
Sure.
But I tell you the truth, I mentioned it in the last hearing. I wish it was like the dispensary business, the pot business, for lack of a better term.
That-
They have to show an ID before they come in the door.
Into the door, right.
They have to show an ID in a booth, and they sign them in, but in this business, it's just, I don't think that would work. It's just, you'd have a line
Right.
down the parking lot.
If
It's
they
also
even
very
wanted to wait.
expensive. You'd
Yeah.
be hiring another
have a
person.
greeter.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, this is getting very expensive too.
It's incredibly expensive. We have someone coming in later in the meeting from tobacco control. We can certainly ask him if there are some other mechanisms that would be helping the store owners along regards of screening customers.
I'd love it. I'd love to sleep better.
Yeah.
So the fine has been paid.
Okay.
In addition to the fine, there is a suspension.
Yeah, it's 7 consecutive days, which I know.
The state regulations, just so you know. You're enforcing state
Could
regulations.
I just make a comment?
Sure.
Scared me.
I wanted to make a comment regarding, you had mentioned, if a person looks to be 35 or under, they need to be carded. And I feel like we discussed this as a board with you last time you were in, was that's a very subjective thing. And it turns out that was kind of the instance here where the employee said, well, so-and-so had a beard. I really thought they were 35. Just my opinion, I don't really think that's a good metric to use. I think it just has to be more black and white. Everybody's ID gets scanned. It's just the way it is, because I think for the employee, they need to understand that maybe a way to explain it is, if you're willing to risk your job over not IDing this person, then go ahead. But that's really the risk that they're assuming. It's, everybody looks different, people look different ages, and I think we had this conversation last time, and so it's,
Right.
I just wouldn't leave it up to that. I would say just ID everybody, scan everybody,
Well, the
no
fed-
questions.
The federal statute is 27 or less. That's what they tell us. The federal statute is if they look 27 or less. I thought I took it a step further than that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what they, in a letter to us, told us. So I thought I took it a step higher than that to make it even more viable that, you know, this guy, no way he's 35, no way he's 24, 27. So
Yeah.
Still
I just think it can
Wake
get,
up.
it can
Wake
get
up, people,
messy
you know?
and can get you into trouble, you know? That's
Okay.
all. I just don't want to see it get you into trouble, you know?
So it's best not to do that, you're
Best to-
suggesting?
To card everybody if they're buying
To
cigarettes
card
or
everybody.
alcohol. Yep.
We just apologize to the 80-year-old, but this is what you have to do, or it's a
Maybe
compliment
say,
to
"It's
them.
great, I haven't been carded in decades," you know, so, but,
Yeah, well, most people understand.
yeah.
Um,
And you could even put up a sign and say, you know, we are going to be carding anybody of any age that wants to buy tobacco or alcohol.
I understand, once again, the human element steps in and the girl, they have to do it.
Right, right.
I mean, you can, like, I think you had mentioned you can put all the signs in the world up.
Right, but that's just to alert people, because
Yeah.
if you do that, you'll be changing your policy. So it just lets people know ahead of time, instead of coming in and getting all angry because, well, I never had to
Well,
before.
I mean, if you look 30, it's on the door, it's on the counter, if you look 35 or less, so they should, I mean,
That's subjective, you know? My husband checked out of the medical appointment today, and the woman said, "Wow, you don't look your age." Well, he never would have been carded, he's 80, but, you know,
right.
you just can't tell with people.
I tell people I still get carded for a senior citizens discount.
Yeah, sure. I mean, people have to follow the rules, you know, if,
So we need to establish dates of the suspension, so why don't you tell us what's going to work best for you? I'm sure nothing's going to work very well for you.
Thing this time of year,
Yeah,
but
so we need
well, you tell
some
me what
dates,
the,
I guess.
you tell me what the options are. As far,
consecutive business days, you can tell us when you
I mean,
want to start.
is it, has to be soon?
Yeah.
Can it be in the fall?
No, no.
Okay, that's what
Can I ask a question?
Of course.
Sure.
Is this $2,000 fine and this suspension a state rule or is it a town rule?
State.
State.
Right.
And the town has adopted the state rules.
We had to be
We
in
had this some
compliance.
time ago, yeah.
Yep.
And Bob Collette will be on, probably within a half an hour, to talk about this. This goes across every 351 communities. This is not unique to Yarmouth.
I wish the state was aware that they can get cigarettes or alcohol online anytime they want to, so. You know, that's neither here nor there
It's an
right
issue.
now.
That's an issue going
We,
down.
it's the law, and we abide by the law, believe me. But I'm not sure what this is accomplishing, but anyway, we're gonna live by the rules. We always have. And so, what is the parameters of the suspension? What's my options?
Tell us when you're going to start 7 consecutive
Yeah,
business
we
days.
just need a date. What's the first day you want to
Within
start?
the next few weeks, anyway,
Okay, I just soon start tomorrow then. My
okay?
busiest time of year is coming in the next week when school is out.
Right,
We're just gonna get slammed,
Right.
okay.
which we've been looking forward to all winter, believe me.
So it would be starting June 6th.
Yes,
Okay.
Okay.
So we can have a motion and I guess vote on it. It looks like this requires a vote as usual for that kind of violation.
I move that Moonshine Liquors have their license suspended for 7 consecutive days, starting June 6th.
Thank you. Just a second of the motion, please.
Second,
Thank you. Any further discussion? See, there's none. All in favor, just raise your hand, say aye.
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 Okay.
and what does that entail? All cigarettes have to be moved from the counter, blocked with something? taken away out of the store, you know.
Right. Will, Phil, the inspector for the town of Yarmouth, will come to the store tomorrow, and it has to be with certainty. Typically, they're taken right out so that there's no, they're not visual for the customer to even see.
We have a square thing like this. I don't know if I could just block it.
If you could block that,
And
sure.
put a sign, something, say,
Something of that nature. Yeah.
sales until,
I don't want you to, I don't know the setup there, or how big,
not big.
a project of moving, but it has to be blocked. It can't be
Visual,
visual
okay.
for the customers to see, but it starts tomorrow through the 7th, through the 12th.
okay,
That could lead to some antagonism, and it's the last thing you need, so,
well,
Yeah.
it's gonna be tough, but
yes.
I just don't get it over with. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, until next Monday.
As I said last time, we don't really want to be seeing you again.
No, I'm getting too comfortable. I'm getting to know you people too well, and I don't.
You don't want
like
to
it.
know us, right? Okay,
Okay, thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
stick with it, okay?
Thank you. So Phil will be in the morning?
Yes,
Okay.
Phil will stop by.
In the meantime,
Thanks for coming in.
all right, thank you.
okay, appreciate it. Okay, we're still on number 3 here. It's another hearing. This is for Peterson's Market, 918 Route 6A, Yarmouthport. And it's the same violations, the sale of a tobacco product to someone who's under 21. So please just have a seat, introduce yourself for the record.
Jeff Blankenship, owner,
Thank you
Peterson's
for,
Market.
yeah, thank you for coming in. Okay, I'm sure you learned a lot, or you haven't learned, but you were back there listening.
I was wishing I could jump in
Yeah,
and answer.
yeah. So Jay, just give us the background on the details. Thanks.
Same compliance check conducted by the Barnstable Yarmouth Tobacco Control Program, May 8th of '23. This says 1:11 in the afternoon. Employee was a female, a sale to an underage youth.
Okay. Want to tell us about it?
I can tell you that after our first meeting, which hit me pretty hard, we went back and retrained everybody. We also made an investment in our POS system of $3,000 to add on ID scanning. And there are 2 levels to the scanning of these IDs in this POS system. The first level is that if the person does not have an ID and they look of age, then you can bypass by entering a birth date. The second one, which is now implemented after my recent violation, is nothing can go by unless I have an ID scanned. And I am upsetting a lot of my customers at this moment. So it's been pretty tough for me.
Are people just not carrying IDs, or do you have a lot of
It's
customers that weren't of
older
age?
people that are clearly of age, 40, 50 above, that, you know, our response is, well, why are you driving? You don't have your ID with you.
Yeah,
Right.
true.
I've never been carded here. I've been shopping here for 40 years. You know me. But the problem is they can't finish the transaction now without that ID.
Okay.
So I lose either that sale, the tobacco sale, or everything else that is involved in that sale. Because they're either frustrated and walk out, or something else happens. But either way, it's not creating a good environment. Now, there was a violation here, and I understand that there's going to be adjustments and changes, but it's human error. My understanding is that and it's not that we were not at fault, but my understanding is that did come up, the age verification did come up when the person was asked for ID. They claimed that their ID was in their car, and then she just punched in the number in order to finish the sale. There was a line,
Yeah.
so. Other than that, there's really not much more I can do. I haven't sold cigarettes since the violation. They've been covered up,
And they're not even,
after this fine and after the investment I made in the POS and the short margin on cigarettes, it's probably not worth my time.
There's a short margin on cigarettes.
Very short.
Like what?
11, 12%.
That's more than
Wow.
supermarkets.
So the system works at all the cash registers? I'm very familiar with the store, so, okay.
We have signs now that says, on the front, that says, "We are scanning IDs, you must have them." And I got in a discussion just 3 days ago with a lovely, who used to be a lovely 80-year-old woman. Chewed me out because she wanted a bottle of Sutter Home and just left home, came to get the Sutter Home, and didn't have her driver's license with her. Slammed down, made a scene in the store, and walked out. And I'll never shop here again.
So what are you doing with the alcohol when someone wants to?
Same thing. So specific categories of items, alcohol, tobacco, lottery, and CBD products are all requiring age verification. So whenever any one of those items scans, it automatically prompts for the IDs with the appropriate age that's needed for those items. So now I'm on, you can't get by without a physical ID that scans.
It's too bad. Times
Yeah,
have changed, and
yeah.
I'm sorry people don't realize that.
I don't know, I think with alcohol, it's always been ingrained in people's minds that it's 21, end
Right.
of story.
Right.
Cigarettes recently moved to 21, and I think there's a little bit of a mindset in some of these people that are cashiering that it's not that important for it to be 21 on cigarettes, to be honest. And like I said, I have been at Peterson's for 15 years, and I have never had a warning or a violation or anything, and I haven't changed any sort of regulations or rules for people that work there. So, to me, it's just frustrating.
For sure. It's not like there's been enormous increases in inspections or anything that I'm aware of.
Like I said, I've been doing this for so long, and I know the inspections come, and, you know, because I don't hear about them, I don't know when they're happening, because I haven't heard about them, because I haven't been cited for all this time until February, I believe it was, and now.
So if this 75-year-old wants to buy alcohol, what happens?
We are now asking them for ID.
Is, okay.
I can't-
That's what it
so-
sounded like, yes. you
Yeah,
can't-
so I can't, for example, the different categories of retail, so liquor, lottery, cigarettes, I can't bypass one section with an age verification by punching in. It's either all or nothing.
Right.
And because of this, it's now all or nothing.
And that 75-year-old is buying alcohol in stores at probably at 16 back then, so no one asked for anything.
I picked up my dad's cigarettes at the dry cleaner when I was 10,
Yeah, right.
you know, but it's not now. I get it. So, even with lottery, it's slowing down my ring times, because if I have to card somebody for lottery to be 18, and they don't have an ID on them, it slows everything down. Now, I've also said that you can't, when we do resume selling cigarettes, we're only going to be selling them at one register. And that person that's gonna be on that register is going to be a manager as opposed to a cashier.
That's creative thinking. I hope that helps.
It's gonna slow things down, but it's gonna be, at least I know that the person that's on that register, I know is going to do what is supposed to be done.
When you, and I know it's difficult hiring employees today. When you hire someone, do you tell them that this job can be difficult because you have to enforce rules?
Yes, I have to make sure that they're willing to card somebody, especially when I'm hiring college kids. I say, you know, your group of friends comes in, you're gonna have to card them. If it's somebody that your friends may know, or you may know removed, you're still gonna have to card them. Are you okay with that? All of my cashiers by the state for the ABCC have to do tips training. It's very clear about what the IDing policies are. So those IDing policies, as I've spoken, are just carried on to tobacco. Whether or not they physically carry out those duties, yeah, these were two younger folks, women, ladies, that apparently were not paying attention.
Yeah, the odds are lunchtime, that even goes even further. I mean, when it gets busy at places like yours, yeah. Okay, so we need to move ahead with a vote and suspension period.
I believe that I've paid the fine, I don't know if it's. I
Yeah.
think
Yes,
it's
you have.
clear.
Yes, it's been
You've
paid.
you've paid the fine, yes.
So,
7 days from today, from tomorrow?
okay, same, we can get it over with June 6th.
And I haven't been selling them, but I know it's not, doesn't matter, I can show 0 sales on my cigarettes, but I will, like I said, I think I've actually been losing money on cigarettes after these fines and the investments.
Yeah, I don't think we can apply that. As
File for
far-
hardship?
As far as I know. What's that?
Can't file for hardship?
So,
So is Phil going to go out to Peterson's
So
too?
we'll go to, yeah, we'll make stops on both. Did I miss that it'll start
Well,
tomorrow? It's gonna
I'll
start-
make a motion,
okay.
but he hadn't set the date, so. Or
Okay.
Eric, can you make the motion?
Sure. I move we suspend the tobacco sales permit for Peterson's Market starting June 6th until June 13th.
Second?
further discussion? See, there's none. Once again, all in favor of the motion. If you're in favor, raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. Okay, so. Appreciate you coming in, and good luck with the new system. We all hope it works.
Yeah, me too.
Okay.
Thank you.
Have a good season there.
We will, thank you.
Okay. Fourth item is discussion. This is Bob Collette coming in, the Tobacco Control Division Program Director, who we've seen Bob before and is, yeah. So,
I don't,
Bob, I don't see,
he wasn't coming in person, he was zooming in.
no, I don't see him
Yes.
on the magic board. I don't see him. So why don't we skip it for the time being unless, Jay, there's something you want?
No, it really is, it's up to Bob. I met with him earlier last week on Thursday. Phil and I sat down with him, and the discussion was, I put some of the regulations into your pack to review, but it really was for Bob to step you through. And really, the goal was to have the board think about aligning not only just the enforcement measures, but completely adopting the regulations of the state. And they're fair. There's one of the ones you'll see. It's highlighted. Some might even be difficult to read in some sections. It's fairly new, actually. It's very recent. There's a date on that. So hopefully Bob might have just gotten delayed, and he'll join us, and we can just watch to see. But that's the purpose of that.
I couldn't tell if it was highlighting or blocking it out.
No, it's
Because
highlighted.
I couldn't read it. So in other words, the Plymouth regulations do follow the state regulations.
Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, I did notice that there are a few things that we didn't have that were in Plymouth. I didn't think that there were very many, but that there were some, like coupon, we didn't define coupon. Electronic nicotine delivery system, we don't have in ours.
Yep.
Tobacco product flavor enhancer, retail establishment, we didn't have that specifically defined, and we didn't call it an adults-only store, but I forget what we call it, a smoking bar or whatever. And then, this was interesting, retailers must obtain manufacturer documentation certifying that all products possessed, held, kept, or sold or distributed do not meet the definition of a flavored tobacco product. That certainly would help the retailers, but have people been finding it difficult to get that from the manufacturers via the distributors?
So that would be Bob. I
Okay.
don't know. Bob would have to
But I
answer
mean,
that.
that would certainly help, because, the list changes and people, things get by and the distributors try to stick in a sample or whatever. And then nicotine content and electronic nicotine delivery systems, we don't have addressed in our,
Right.
and so those were the things, at a quick review that I saw that were different, so.
Yeah, dealing with the distributor especially, as the list kept changing, we dealt with this pre-pandemic and just,
Right.
it's too easy for the store owner to get stuck with it.
Right.
The other issue was the menthol mint and wintergreen, in our regs, I think needs to be updated. Where the state actually had banned it a number of years ago. The other thing about, when I reviewed our regs, is the literature's too old.
Yeah.
There are quotes here from literature in 2009. I think we can do better than that. So perhaps we can work on that. I'm happy to help with that.
I mean, we can use Plymouth, I mean,
Yeah, I'm fine by that.
because it's largely very much the same.
And it may be a hybrid, and maybe things that the board, my hope was to try to align, if not completely, in near complete with the state regulations. I think it just makes sense. And that's what Bob, when I met with him it was last Thursday, I said that was the hope, is trying to move the Commonwealth communities to be in line with the state.
Standard.
To be, exactly, standardization.
I will read this, I don't think I'll have any problem with doing it, but I did not read the state regulations. So I'll read them and see if there's anything that I think.
Okay. And
do
it'll be
the
helpful, and I hope Bob joins us, but if he doesn't, that was kind of the homework assignment, is to be going over the regulations.
And then maybe he could appear at the next meeting and say, okay, or answer some questions like.
Yeah, I have to think there's a technology problem, because you sent him the link, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so, I mean, he was committed to this, so something came up, and I apologize for the disruption.
Yeah, with that, we could probably move forward, if everyone agrees, pretty quickly on just
Right.
dealing with our regulations here. The other thing I thought we ought to review is a letter that goes out from Phil. Just maybe we can review that. Doesn't have to be this evening.
Yeah.
I just had a question on it.
Sure.
About the language used and maybe to clear something up there that,
Well, and actually, if we make some changes, we could just go ahead and include
okay,
that, little paragraph
yeah.
for that next letter that this is, or for the letters that go out or whatever.
Okay.
Okay.
Sound good?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, that would throw us right into number 5 here, and that's an update on Article 34 and 35.
So at the last meeting, Hallie O'Neill came to talk about the plastic, the articles as far as, that passed at town meeting. She gave just an overview, a thumbnail sketch of what that was, and she didn't feel comfortable, and rightfully so. I know, although she presented at the town meeting, she said she really was not in a position to be doing this. So I reached out to the executive director. Unfortunately, she's teaching a course in Boston, BU or Northeastern, I'm not sure. It wasn't available. Would like to come, but she would very much like to come as the executive director of Sustainable Solutions. Would like to come over the summer, the first availability, after June, to be able to come in and give a full presentation about what the intent was and the applicability and how this would be enforced, and the reasoning behind it, and really wants to educate the board about that. So more to come on that.
Maybe in
Okay?
July, if we can, it'll be fine.
She made herself available.
Okay.
Okay, good.
As for the 2 articles, one thing I may have mentioned to you, Jay, was that on the town meeting there, would perhaps been appropriate if there was a documentation of the vote the Board of Health may have had on the subject.
But we didn't have it.
Yeah, that would have been nice. It's something that's relevant. Finance is there, the select board's there, whether the Board of Health vote of whatever it was on it may have been appropriate or helpful for the people at the meeting. I mean, we'd have to know ahead of time that, hey, this article's coming up, the board ought to talk about it and maybe take a vote. Whether it's split for, against, doesn't make any difference. It's just that may, if someone valued our opinion as a Board of Health, when there's a Board of Health article.
And that had come up, the first time they tried to get the styrofoam through, the first time they tried to get the plastic bottles through, the folks came before us and told us what they were trying to do and what other towns were doing. You know, it made us much more informed about what was going to be presented, and we could also, like Hill had said, support it or not support it, but at least voice our opinion on it. I think that, that it'd be interesting to hear from the executive director, because I understand that the student was, you know, was working under her.
Absolutely, yeah.
And apparently, because of what the discussion that went on at the last meeting when Roby was here and all, and the student mentioned she was going to now go to the retail establishments, the Chamber of Commerce. She hadn't really done that. So I'm kind of surprised that this executive director hadn't started that way. You know, that's kind of,
All that is proactive,
Groundwork,
should be, of
yeah.
course. And to this board.
well, yeah.
The presentation would have come to the board, to the Chamber of Commerce, Retail, Restaurant Association, all that background, right? And
Everybody
you build
involved.
momentum, you build, good and bad.
And support.
So,
yeah,
support
hopefully
is-
support. Yeah.
And those that maybe don't agree, and to educate them and try to find a middle ground and educate them on the intent, so.
So, yeah, I didn't, after I heard that, I didn't feel badly she hadn't come here, because she hadn't gone anywhere else, really.
Right.
It's kind of
Right.
took it to the town, so.
Bob Colette's here.
Okay,
Okay.
so we're going to back up to number 4 here.
If we could.
So Jay, you want to make an introduction for us?
Sure. So, can we let Bob Colette in? Bob, you with us?
He may,
Bob, are you there? You're, Bob, you're on mute.
yeah, it looks that way from here, it does. There we go.
Bob?
Interesting. It did change where his name is, where the mic was there, now it's not. The red was there.
Bob, could you let us know if you can hear us?
Eric, can you hear us?
I can hear you. I was gonna try to message Bob and see if he can hear us.
Well, if he's,
I don't know how you want to proceed, I know.
Bob says he can hear us.
We can't hear him.
so he's got to be on mute either,
Or his,
for some reason.
his speaker isn't turned up. Could you just, Eric, thank you
Thank you.
for communicating this. We can't hear, we're not able to hear him.
Is it on our side? I mean, do we have him muted some way?
I mean, there's no video also, Bob, just to let you know.
It wouldn't be us.
When, okay. I don't know enough about it to know.
Sometimes there's my laptop has a microphone, a button that disables the microphone. I'm asking him if that could be the case on his device.
Say it ain't us? Is that what he said?
It ain't us. All right.
It ain't us.
You can blame us for a lot of stuff, but not this one.
Dump something else on you, all right.
Well,
Well,
Until-
Bob,
If
we,
you can hear us. Yeah, we'll-
okay.
He says he might try calling in by phone
Okay,
instead. So he says stand by.
We still love you, Bob.
so where-
just wish you'd get with the technology, that's all.
what phone is he calling in? I don't,
I must have a landline or a
no, but,
cell phone? Oh, what
He-
number?
That's the way to call in, and his number show up instead of his name.
Oh, okay.
okay, then we'll be able to hear.
We'll be able to, oh, well, hopefully.
We don't know, right?
Okay, he's
Well,
coming
if
in
he
again.
can't call in, you can tell him we talked about it. We can see him at another meeting, and we'll have some stuff done.
Right.
So he's trying to.
Hello?
There you go.
Ah,
Wow.
who's this?
Yes, Bob, Bob Collette. I'm sorry. My microphone on my computer is not working for some reason.
Okay.
So,
Well, Bob, thanks for making arrangements to be here. We've just introduced Bob, and the board has heard from Bob Collette in the past. He's the director of the Tobacco Control Division, program director in Barnstable County. But we did have a couple of retailers here today, just earlier before you joined us for their second offense. And so went through it and their frustration, things of that nature. So when you and I met earlier, we've gone through that, but really the reason to bring you on, hopefully, was to maybe address some of the frustrations that they are facing, the retailers are facing, but also really the hope was to better align and maybe completely mirror the state regulations here in Yarmouth. And so the board has in front of them the regulations that you provided to me last Thursday. And maybe just, if you could just kind of walk them through that about what some of the differences are.
okay. So this is the latest draft model regulation that DPH is providing and recommending for the local boards. And this would bring local boards up to meet the minimum standard as far as the tobacco laws that are contained within the state law. The town would at least be at the minimum standard there and beyond, because you have some provisions that are not included in the state law as well. But as you're probably aware, it's illegal to have a regulation on the books that doesn't at least meet that minimum standard. So I applaud the board for taking the action of considering upgrading, amending your regulation to today's standard. So basically, there's some definitions in there that you would want to consider on page 3 under adult-only retail tobacco store, and just to add to the existing, I believe you probably already have a definition for that, but you should add that it has a separate entrance not used by any other retailer that does not sell food, beverages, or alcohol. And that's highlighted in the draft reg that you should have before you. And also, there's a new definition of blunt wraps in that same section. Or any product made wholly or in part from a tobacco product manufactured or packaged with loose and removable leaves or section of a leaf, or as a hollow tube that may be used by the consumer to wrap or contain loose tobacco or other fillers. So this is a modified definition that would capture all of the various products that are out there now that are used to roll tobacco and other substances. And it used to be that it was just flavored blunt wraps that were illegal, but this would include now like Fronto Leaf and various other similar products that are favored by young people. And on page 5, definition of cigar, the last sentence in that definition would be included to include, stating tobacco leaf in kits or roll your own packages shall be considered blunt wraps for the purpose of this regulation. So, what they do now is package this stuff separately so that, to try to get around the intent of the law. So if they add this in, then that would cover it. And then moving on to page 6. Under healthcare institution, there's a highlighted section there that you should add in a retail establishment that provides optometric, hearing, and audiology services, but is not subject to regulation by the Board of Registration and Pharmacy shall not be considered a healthcare institution. So this is things like, they have an optician's shop in BJ's Wholesale, for instance. You don't have one of those right now. but this would be to cover that, the exemption. Okay.
The,
Um,
Bob, just so you know, what you gave me on Thursday, I
Yeah.
guess this was a draft, and it's actually a draft for the town of Plymouth.
Right, but this is what DPH is now promoting as the latest draft model regulation. We just went to Plymouth a couple of weeks ago to speak about this. That's why.
Okay.
And Cheryl had done, so this would also. Okay, all right. I see what you're saying.
No, the other thing
but-
is, there's some pages that are missing. We don't have a page 6 here. We just copied over what you gave us, and
Oh,
there's just not a big deal, there's some highlight, but some of the things, the piece you just referenced on page 6, there isn't a page 6 to our copy.
Oh, all right. Well, maybe Phil forgot to copy that page because he gave me my copy back after making copies for everybody on the
Okay.
board
Okay,
from the copy that I'm looking at.
got it. Thank you.
Okay, that's not a really big deal, this piece, but I'll certainly provide it to you.
Yep.
And then on page 7, do you have that
Yes, we do.
included? Okay, so page 7 would include a new definition for rolling papers, which is there, sheets, rolls, tubes, cones, wraps, reliefs, because these come in so many different forms now. It used to be just, simple rolling papers like zigzags or easy widers, those kinds of things. Now you have them come in all different shapes and sizes and forms. So this is the new definition. Okay, and these are now required to be sold they're restricted to 21 and up, okay? They, as opposed to before, under the state law. So you would want to include these in the local regulation, which you probably don't have in there right now. Because they were under state law, they were already addressed under this previous state law as being restricted to, you had to be 18. But under the new state law, the rolling papers are included. Okay. So then moving on from that, on the page 9, you would want to, under the definition of tobacco product sales permit, include the word indoor if you don't already have it on line 4 there.
Yep.
Yep.
And also under that same section, E4, all required Mass Department of Revenue licenses related to the sale of tobacco products must be displayed conspicuously at the retail establishment. And that isn't always the case, I've got to say. Almost half of them, I would say, keep them posted in an office, or they have them in a binder or something, or sometimes they just can't find them, and we spend some time finding them under the counter or wherever, but they are supposed to be posted. We've never really enforced on that, but the board should not issue a permit from year to year without the retailer having possession of the Mass Department of Revenue licenses, and there are 3 of them now. If they sell not only cigarettes, but let's say vaping products and cigars, they would need all 3 licenses from the state. And the board should require that. Those are, proof of the possession of those are required before the local permit is issued at the end of every year for the following calendar year. And then number 7, I think you already have this one in there, or a similar language. A tobacco product sales permit will not be renewed if the permit holder has sold a tobacco product to the person of age under the age of 21 3 times within the previous permit year, and the time period to appeal has expired. The violator may request a hearing in accordance with subsection of the violations section. So that's something that should be added. And then, do you have page 10 there? Or
No.
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 yeah, okay, so it looks like Phil probably just copied like the front pages of these because this is a two-sided pages. There's some more information about sale of a business, which I can provide to you. So notwithstanding a cap on total number of permits holders, which you do have, the seller of a business holding a valid tobacco sales permit may transfer said permit to a bona fide purchaser for value of the business, subject to approval by the Board of Health as required herein. And B in that section is the purchaser shall apply for the transfer of the permit no later than 30 calendar days after said purchase. And the purchaser shall not sell tobacco product until the transfer of the permit is approved by the Board of Health. And C, all fines and suspensions of the previous owner must be satisfied prior to the sale. So this primarily will, a lot of times violators will, they'll accumulate one or two fines, and then maybe after the second one, they say, okay, I'm going to sell the business and try to avoid paying the fine, and they sell it to their sister or their cousin or their parents or what have you, or someone within the circle that they work with, in business with, and try to circumvent the penalty of, selling illegally or selling flavors that they're not supposed to sell and that kind of thing. So this prevents that from happening. And then under the retail density section, which is the next one, a tobacco product sales permit shall not be issued to any new applicant for a retail location within 500 feet of a public or private elementary or secondary school as measured by a straight line from the nearest point of property line of the school to the nearest point of the property line of the site of the applicant's business premises. And I believe you probably already have that. The next one is a tobacco product sales permit shall not be issued to any new applicant for a retail location within 500 feet of a retailer with a valid tobacco product sales permit as measured by a straight line from the nearest point of the property line of the retailer with a valid tobacco product sales permit to the nearest point of the property line of the site of the applicant's business premises. So that's one that I don't think you have on the books at the moment.
No.
And Jay mentioned to me the other day that one of the stores down on Old Townhouse Road had sold the business, and they, you had basically two stores there were side by side, or maybe there was one small business in between them. And this would apply directly to that situation, whereby if you adopted this provision, then I think it was Quick Mart, you said, Jay, that sold.
Quick Mart.
That would eliminate the possibility of them ever becoming a tobacco retailer again. Anybody who moved into that space, for instance.
Right.
So it's a retail density strategy, which is a proven strategy to, help limit the number of retailers and the number of illegal sales that occur in a given community. So the next section down is applicants who purchase or acquire an existing business that holds a valid tobacco product sales permit at the time of the sale or acquisition of said business must apply within 60 days of such sale or acquisition for the permit held by the current permit holder if the applicant intends to sell tobacco products as defined herein. And D, if the purchaser of a business with a valid tobacco sales permit pursuant to section E9 changes the location of the business, the new location shall be subject to the retail density requirements of section E10. So in other words, they wouldn't just be able to move their business wherever they wanted to. They would have to follow the regulations as regarding where they can set up legally. And then there's the next piece is a prohibition on smoking bars, which I don't know if you have that already on the books or not, but local boards of health can't prohibit. All right. And then under cigar sales, being regulated, no person shall sell or distribute or cause to be sold or distributed. So this is about the minimum pricing, which right now is $2.50 in Yarmouth for a single cigar. And now, according to the Consumer Price Index and the increases in the prices of things, DPH is recommending that that figure of $2.50 for a single cigar, a minimum of $2.50, be raised to $2.90. And the same thing for multi-packs of cigars, which Yarmouth has on the books, minimum sales price of $5 for any package of 2 or more, should be raised to $5.80 or more. And that section shall not apply to a person or entity engaged in the business of selling or distributing cigars for commercial purposes to another person or entity engaged in the business of selling or distributing cigars for commercial purposes with the intent to sell or distribute outside the boundaries of Yarmouth. And then the Yarmouth Board of Health may adjust from time to time the amounts specified in this section to reflect changes in the applicable consumer price index by amendment of this regulation. So that $2.50 figure and $5 figure from 9 years ago now, I believe is when you adopted it, is now, obsolete, if you will. So this is just to kind of keep up with the way prices are increasing. And then the definition of sale of flavored tobacco products prohibited. No person as defined herein shall possess, hold, keep, sell, or distribute, or cause to be possessed, held, kept, sold, or distributed any flavored tobacco product as defined herein, or any flavored tobacco product enhancer as defined herein. And then if you permit smoking bars, you add this phrase, accepting smoking bars for on-site consumption only. But you don't have any smoking bars, and if you adopt language to prohibit those, then you won't have to worry about that. Okay.
Bob?
Yes.
I had a question about, on page 11, the,
Sure.
down the paragraph right above section I. It says the retailers must obtain manufacturer documentation, which I think is great and it would help the retailers, but do you know if retailers are having difficulty getting this documentation?
I don't. And the law went into effect during COVID. And I know at the beginning they were having some trouble, and haven't been aggressive about requiring proof of that documentation, but we're going to be ramping that up. We're finding products out there that the manufacturers claim are not flavored, but they are. Mm-hmm. And there are a few out there. And so under state law, all of the retailers are supposed to have a letter from the manufacturer of each tobacco or nicotine delivery product that they sell that states that the product is not flavored. And so I've found some retailers have them and some don't. And really going to be just as we move into FY24 here, we're going to start really inspecting for those. It hasn't been something that's been a top priority for us in the past couple of years because of all the new flavored stuff that's been emerging on the market and the different forms of delivery products that we've sort of been consumed with. But these letters are important because now the manufacturers are actually providing misinformation to the retailers in some cases about whether or not the products are flavored or not. And then the retailers in some cases are getting caught selling these products that are flavored unwittingly. So we've tried to give them plenty of latitude on this and advise them to call my office or call your office, in which case, in turn, you would have them call me, I'm sure. But to get advice on each individual product that's out there or emerging on the market. There's new stuff every week, it seems. So it's very difficult to keep up with. I am empathetic with the retailers on this particular topic, but they should have those letters so that, because, if we know which manufacturers are not being forthright about what's flavored and what's not, then we can develop a plan to deal with that. And I know the Department of Revenue is doing some work on this as well. But I hope that helps to answer your question, but that is, they are supposed to have those letters.
So some retailers are finding it not difficult to get them from the manufacturer.
Some are finding it not difficult. The manufacturers are supposed to be providing it through the distributors, and the distributors are not always, just providing them
Right.
freely. Yeah.
Bob, we ran into this when we first put our flavoring, the regulation in. This goes way back in the state. We may have been the first, actually, or second in the state. And
Yeah.
the issue was the companies were saying it's not flavored according to our lab. So we sent out, the state didn't want to obviously spend money on sending the products to labs to determine whether it was
Right.
flavored or not.
Right. So, right, the cost of that would have been absolutely exorbitant. And so you recall, Mr. Chair, what the board did, and then the whole court case in Barnstable. And so that is actually set a legal precedent for boards of health across the state. They can determine whether a product is flavored or not just by, having a consensus, reaching a consensus after personally smelling the products themselves. And, most of the time it's pretty apparent. There's one out there right now that comes to mind, and it's called Dutch Gold Fusion. I'm finding it around here and there, but I'm advising retailers to take it off the shelf. And when I do so, I say, let's open this, because I want you to smell it and you tell me what you smell. Because when I smell it, I want to eat it. And it smells just like a Hershey bar, but the manufacturers are providing a letter stating that the product is not flavored. So even the retailers that I've done this with, they have to chuckle because they know. I mean, it's plain to, it's plainly evident that this stuff is flavored.
Right. I don't know if you remember, but we certainly had our sniff tests there that night.
Yes, we did. Yeah, right. So I try to engage them to the extent that I can when trying to solve these problems, because otherwise we'd have people in, every other meeting for violations of selling flavored stuff, and so that's still, it's been a more difficult problem to deal with, and it's not as cut and dry as illegal sales to minors.
Right.
That happens, it happens, it's done. There's no question about anything. It's there's no ambiguity there. So it's a little bit different in the way we approach it, but when we advise retailers to stop selling a particular product, and then we find it there again, or we find other products that we know are flavored, and they haven't been vigilant about being, not carrying flavors and being more careful about what they sell, then that's when that's what raises the flags for us.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so there's a piece on page 12. I know you don't have that. It's but you already have it on the books. It's about the prohibition of the sale of blunt wraps, which you already have.
Okay.
And then on 13, the highlighted area on section L1, out of package sales, I believe you already have this language, and it says no person as defined herein shall possess, hold, keep, sell, or distribute, or cause to be possessed, held, kept, sold, or distributed any cigarette package that contains fewer than 20 cigarettes. Again, that was probably just intended for Plymouth, because I know you have that. And then self-service displays under M, all self-service displays are prohibited. And that adult-only retail tobacco stores are exempt from this section. Roll machines, you already have that in there too. So, basically the most important piece right now, as Jay and I were discussing last week, and Phil, is to update your penalty phase, so that the fines and suspensions, the fine structure matches that which exists in the state regulation. And, the suspension piece, you should go along with what you have on the books for first, second, and third offense, because it fits within, the state gives some latitude, which the town does not on the suspensions. And even though the state law doesn't, it appears not to require a suspension for a first offense. It does. It's contained, the language is contained in a separate paragraph where it says that it shall be a suspension of 1 to 30 days. So there has to be a suspension. We recommend 3 days. And some places are doing 1 day, some are doing more if you have that on the books for a first offense. And I can't recall what, Jay, do you know offhand, or Mr. Chair, what the Yarmouth regulation requires for a first offense for a suspension?
Suspension,
No, yeah, there is no suspension, right?
suspension.
Okay. So 3 days would be the recommendation of DPH. It's kind of like in the middle of, it's kind of a minimal thing. And then a second offense, I think the town requires 7-day suspension. The state says, suspend 1 to 30 days. So, the board already has, one to, I think it's 1 to 7. So the board should stick with the 7, and then on the third offense, use what you have on the books. I think it's 30, and you've done one of those in the past.
Earlier tonight, Bob, the board did enact the $2,000, on 2 establishments in town, the $2,000 fine. Second offense parameters, $2,000 and a 7-day suspension.
Yeah, okay. That's appropriate. Yeah. Okay.
A lot of frustration, though, I have to tell you, from the
Well,
from the
yeah,
owners.
and these penalties are heavy and from the state's end, and they're even worse from the FDA. And the FDA, it's my understanding that one of those retailers was a week after they sold to our youth last time, sold to during an FDA compliance check a week later. So that the FDA does issue a warning for their first offense, but then the fines escalate up beyond $10,000 for subsequent offenses. So, I understand they feel like they're under assault probably, but again, we spend a lot of time educating. We spend a lot of time offering help to those who need it and encouraging them to make sure that they know that their staff is well educated and reliable. And I know, it's not always possible to have your eyes on everybody, but ultimately the responsible party is the person who owns the permit. And that's the way it is in every business for no matter what you're dealing with. So I understand the frustration, but it also should serve to deter these actions in the future, these behaviors of selling to people. They should just card everybody who appears to be at least under 30.
Or
The
anybody.
state, the Attorney General's law says 27. They use that as a guideline or a requirement, but not everybody goes by that, of course. But when that law was put into effect, it was in accordance with the 9-year difference between the legal age to purchase alcohol and what alcohol retailers are required to do, and that is to card everybody under 30. So at the time, tobacco was the legal age to purchase tobacco was 18. So they just simply added the 9 years to that and said, okay, card everybody that appears to be under 27 or 27 or under, if you will. And unfortunately, that doesn't always happen. And so what they should be doing, and we always say this, ask for the ID before you even put the cigarettes on the counter or whatever product that is that they're asking for. So because that begins the process of the sale. If you grab it for them from behind the counter and you put it up there and then you tell them what the price is and they want to pay you, then you decide to ask for the ID. You know, it shouldn't get to that point. You should cut it off right at the beginning and again, ask everybody who appears to be 30 and under or even older. You know, some places are using 40 as a guideline now. Or some ask everybody.
Right. We had that discussion tonight, and
Yeah.
it's pretty subjective. I mean, they were using 35, and the employee thought the bearded person looked 35, so.
Though they didn't look closely. Yeah, that's the problem.
Right.
You know, if you take a look at someone's face, you know, just look at the eyes and the face and it doesn't matter, you know. It doesn't matter if there's a little bit, 16-year-olds could have a little bit of facial hair, you know, just,
Right.
it's a matter of being observant.
Bob, one of the things we also talked about was that you might have some suggestions for these retail owners that are having the problems with employees who are not IDing appropriately. The second person that came in had purchased a POS system that was expensive, but he was going to be using it for everybody now. He sells alcohol also.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you know of any other things that people are doing to try to facilitate their employees IDing appropriately.
Yeah, a lot of the chains have their own programs and you know, they do their own compliance checks privately, you know, they hire some outside companies to do it, or they design their own programs.
A lot of mom and pop places.
I know, yeah. So the mom and pops, it's a little more difficult, but even if they buy those POS, the scanners and machines and what have you, they're still subject to human judgment and error. A lot of places will bypass them, and I've seen people enter their own ID to buy some, you know, to allow a young person to purchase. And sometimes there's a bypass option on that. So, you know, they can just bypass the requirement. So it's a little bit more troublesome for those folks. I get it. You know, I think I know who you're referring to here, and it's been a real surprise to us too, because they've been a really good, responsible retailer for a long time, and now all of a sudden, they've sold twice in a row, plus to the FDA, all within about 4 months period here. According to the youth that made the sale for us, or made the purchase, it was the same person. So that sold to him twice. And I don't know who it was I have no idea who would have sold to the FDA. We don't really interact with the FDA at all. We just get copies of the violations that they find in our area, and then we don't get them for sometimes 2 or 3 months down the road, you know, after they occur. So, you know, we can do trainings too, you know, and I've thought about doing some of that, because you know, like I say to all of them, when they do incur a fine for illegal sales, is I derive absolutely no satisfaction out of somebody selling. You know, my best day is when we go out and visit 25, 30 retailers and we get no sales.
Right.
You know, then I know I'm happy. I've done my job. People understand what we're trying to, you know, what we're trying to accomplish here, and they're on board with it. And I think most people are. But every once in a while, you get something that slips through the cracks like this. So they have to find a way to really hammer the point home with their retailers, with their employees rather. And I think sometimes usually the message gets across, and sometimes it doesn't.
Bob, what if after your person goes in and is refused the sale, comes back out and lets you know, the person doesn't go back in and say, congratulations, you passed that compliance test? I mean, that might affirm it for the employee who did the right thing. you know, more positive
yeah.
reinforcement.
We've gotten that in the past, and I think, I mean, you know, we don't get a thank you from the IRS for paying our taxes, or a thank you from the local police department when you go through a speed trap and you're under the legal speed limit, right? So it's kind of like the same philosophy. And if we go in while we're going around, to notify them either way, whether they sold or not, what's happened historically, because there was some of that happened in the past, is they, you know, set up a phone tree. Everybody starts calling each other and, hey, they're out today. You know.
Oh, yeah, I
this
get it.
kid, yeah.
Right, right.
And then there was also a period of time in the early years where we would send out a little like index card type note saying, oh, you know, we checked your store on Wednesday and you didn't sell. Congratulations.
Right, right.
And then they would stockpile those, and then when they did have an offense, they would come into the Board of Health and say, look, here's all the times that we didn't get caught. So, you know, the bottom line is there should be a 0 sales rate everywhere, illegal sales rate. And they know that. And there's just is there a perfect way? No, because sometimes we do have retailers that sell to only people that they know. And there's a lot of that goes on, I think, during times that they don't suspect that we'll be out, and so forth. And of course, older people buying for younger people.
Right.
There's a black market out there, which is enormous. So, you know, we're doing what we can, and we're trying to be, like I said, work with them so that compliance is achieved. But we've had across the board a sharp increase in illegal sales, which is very troubling to us over the past couple of years.
I was just going to ask you about that, and, you know, without being ageist about it, I think part of the problem is it's very difficult to find low-wage workers today. I mean, everybody's looking to hire, and it's a younger generation that typically are willing to take these jobs. And I think there's just a different attitude toward compliance and following rules. And I guess I shouldn't generalize like that, but it just seems like that's part of the problem anyway.
That you know, that may be true to some extent, but it doesn't diminish the
No, it doesn't.
reality that
It doesn't,
yeah,
but it makes it harder for the retailers. I mean,
right.
trying to find an employee that's going to be reliable and do what they're supposed to do every single day.
No, I know. It's not easy.
Well,
Just a couple of things. When a transaction has been made, do you ever get a receipt for the sale?
Only if it's offered, because it's really not something that people. Have you ever gone into a store? Have you ever been standing in line and had someone buy a package of cigarettes and then said, "Oh, could I have the receipt, please?" So it's not something that's commonly done. So no, we don't ask for it. But if it's offered, the youth takes it. And so on occasion, we do have a receipt to work with. But again, to refresh your memories about how it works is that the young person goes into the store with nothing in their pocket except for the money that I give them. So, they can't produce an ID or a fake ID or anything like that. And they go in with, let's say, $20, and if the product costs $10.50, they come out with $9.50 in their pocket. We count, I ask them, pay attention to what you paid. And then they come out and tell me, and of course, I document, how much change was given back to me. And so we know the cost of the product, just double checked in that way. So that's all we have, that's all we have if we don't get a receipt.
Okay. Anything the town should consider here that would to customize the regulations? I mean, our town quite well. Is there anything we should keep in mind that makes Yarmouth different than some other towns?
Well, I would say, again, I would act quickly on, have you upgraded this? You did upgrade the fine structure in your regulation?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So what I could do is to comb through what your what your regulation includes already. I'll have Cheryl Sabara review it also and make her recommendations specific to your regulation. And then I'll get that to Jay. And then you'll know. So you'll have a document just like this. It'll be a little different because this one was done for Plymouth. But what it does is this is like everything that every town should have in their regulation. So if you take the document, you're missing some pages there too. So I apologize. I didn't realize Phil must not have realized this was a two-sided document on all the pages.
Right.
So I could send you, Jay, a clean copy without the highlights.
Great.
And I can have Cheryl, just kind of cross-check your regulation with the draft model reg and see what areas should be addressed, and then go from there. Your regulation is pretty strong, and it's not going to require a lot of tweaking, especially since you've already done the fine piece, right?
Right.
Yes.
Except for the
Yeah.
first one,
Yeah.
first offense.
So, right. So why don't we do that? I can have Cheryl I'll take care of that, and Cheryl's assistance on it, and then I'll get that over to Jay and Phil, and then you guys, if you'd like me to come to the next meeting, I'm certainly happy to do that as well, or whenever you'd like to talk about it.
Bob, that's great. I appreciate that. I look forward to receiving that. I'll distribute that to the board, and we'll see what their pleasure is to enact this. Is just to move towards, as you and I talked about last week, in more alignment with what the state is doing. And I think that's the intention of the board, and that was the hope of what we were trying to achieve tonight.
Yeah.
And I apologize on our end for copying. The board is kind of going a little bit blind here because some of the pages were missing. But if you could get me that without the highlights, it's difficult to read as that gets copied. To give them a fresh sheet, a fresh draft for them to look at, and then they can make an informed decision.
Yeah, sure enough.
It looks like a government document is what it looked like.
All
Blacked out. The only thing I had, you brought up an example of, which I wasn't aware of, that was coming along, is that if stores are too close to each other, let's say the same owner has them, what would protect the buyer of a store from buying it and then finding out they're not going to be able to have a license?
Well, when they apply for a permit from you, actually, that should be told to them, at the time of the purchase. They should be aware of it.
Right.
If they're coming to the town for a permit before they purchase it, I would hope to get the information that they would need from the board and whomever else in town hall. That information should be provided to them.
Yeah, that would involve a different department. That's my only concern is with the sale that they need to know ahead of time. They're going to be going there before they go into the Board of Health to get a license, and I just wouldn't want to see that happen. Someone invested money in buying a whole store and then finding out they can't have a license even if the person was willing to sell it to them. That's all.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I hear.
Yeah, Bob, on some of this, if the board were to move forward over the next, say, several months, I think we'd want to distribute this we only have 29, and we're capped, right? We're capped in the number of establishments,
Right.
and to get the regulations out, and Phil would go and to inform them on some of these new edits and adjustments that have made, and one of them would be that, and I get the saturation, making sure that it's dispersed properly, but that's a good point, because the two that the board has in front of them, Quick Mart, you mentioned, they're not coming to the board they are coming eventually, but they're selling it from an existing owner, and that transaction's already happened.
Right.
what the chairman laid out
So-
is, yeah,
So it wouldn't, yeah, I mean, so if somebody came to you tomorrow and wanted to, buy that unit and open a market in there that sells tobacco, then they certainly could do that. But if you were to adopt that language at some point down, in the coming months.
Yep.
Then from the date that the regulation is effective moving forward, that would not be possible.
I think it's a good provision. It's just, I think the permit holders have to be made aware. Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah.
Yeah,
But you just
Of
said
course,
that
yeah.
there's only one
Anything that
instance,
affects
right?
them they should be aware of, yeah.
yeah,
So it's just,
yeah. What's the distance, Bob? You told me last week. What was the distance between?
500 feet.
So across the street? Like if,
or next,
Yeah,
you can't be, but I'm thinking like, say, we had one, obviously the townhouse, but if a place was directly across the street, that would affect that. They have to be,
yeah. Well, 500 feet is roughly, 167 yards, right? Something like that.
they told me no math would be involved in this job, Bob.
they lied.
All right, I'll take your word for that.
Yeah, it's roughly that.
Yep.
So, yeah, that's what it would be. It's 500 feet. And, so, like you said, you don't have stores on top of each other or, there are some situations on Hyannis. I know there's one that comes to mind where you have, an intersection with 4 corners, and on 3 corners, there's a tobacco retailer on, and so that would eliminate that kind of density
Right. That
of
makes,
retailers,
no, it's a good provision, makes sense. I just think I feel on my end, we need to educate the permit holders on that
Sure, sure.
proactively.
Of course, yeah.
Yep.
No, they should be notified of any changes that are, forthcoming potentially. And then you'd want to have a public hearing about it and let them speak their piece and
Yep.
consider what their comments are and then move forward from there.
All right, I think we have a plan. I'll wait to hear from you, and I'll forward that information on to the board.
Sounds great, Jay. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Bob.
Okay, thank you, members of the board.
Thanks.
Have a good evening.
Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Jay, I think it's 501 foot, actually, just to, okay?
Was it 5-1?
Yeah, it's 501, it's close. I don't think we have.
We just rounded.
We don't have to vote on that.
Rounding error.
Okay, so let's go to number 6, let's move this along. Update on coronavirus.
We're going to roll through this with very good news here. Let's go, Erica. Again, I think this is now the probably 3rd meeting in a row. We've had 3 active cases, which is a great number. All right. Looking at the monthly cases, we're down to, for May, less than 1 a day, right? We've dropped to 25 cases in May, and you can see how that number has just gone down since December exponentially. So 25 cases in May for 2023. Okay. Our positivity rate, although it delineates higher, we're still below the 5% at 4.64% for Yarmouth, and really all of the Cape is, if you look across, in very desirable numbers there of really single digits, which is tremendous. Okay. Fully vaccinated, and really those numbers haven't changed. I don't know what the activity rate, the reporting doesn't come to us that much, so 82%. They've kind of changed the calculus on the percentage of the population, but it shows it at 82%. These numbers haven't changed. And fully vaccinated, fairly constant over a 14-day period. Okay, Erica. We've checked these numbers. I had Phil check these, all of the sites, what was still available. We didn't want to be giving out dated information, but VaxFinder from the Massachusetts website is still up and going. There's availability there. If any resident is still interested to get vaccinated for any reason, that is available to go on VaxFinder from the State Department of Public Health. Okay. Cape Cod Healthcare, again, 27 Park Street in Hyannis, 508-862-7000. Vaccinations are available by appointment. And these numbers, these businesses have also been checked. Local businesses, CVS, Stop and Shop on Long Pond, and Walgreens. and you register on the company site, but vaccinations are available. What has changed is dropped out of this slide deck is testing. The testing is not available for our kids here or at many of the sites here. The state isn't doing testing either. So you can buy test kits, but those free government test kits as of May 11th have, since the pandemic has been dropped. And here we go month by month. We get to see that probably since the end of April, here we are, April 26th, significant drop below that kind of magic number of 3.9, and it has consistently, so for 5 weeks in a row, we have been below 5.0. And that would bring us to a decision for the board that back in, I believe it was June, was it? No, April. We changed it in April to include indoor, but this advisory was done, I believe, some months ago when they talked to say that, although the mask mandate was dropped, the board chose to do an advisory. And I think I'd put it before the board to say, might you want to drop that or give some discussion to dropping the advisory? We do have masks available here. We have them out for the public at the town hall, down in the lower level and up top. Personal decision, cough hygiene, personal protection, things of that nature for individuals who are compromised, but the mask advisory really has dropped everywhere, and the board might want to consider dropping the advisory here.
I noticed when I went with my husband to a health care appointment, they were not requiring masks except if you had new cough, had been tested positive for COVID, or had been with somebody who was positive for COVID. So I think we could consider whether we just change it to that.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
I mean, we're going up a little
Anyone
bit
else?
with the positivity rate.
It was, yeah, I mean, this was,
Summer's here, more crowds, and people coming in from places that we don't know, what their vaccination rate is and all.
yeah, it was just a recommendation, for sure.
And that's all this would be,
Yeah.
just to show that we're not saying it's not out there, Yeah, the emergency's over, but
Certainly want the public to, I guess, pay attention if we decided
mind.
to
right.
bring it back on or whatever is coming, that maybe it would show some support from the public if we were to
Right.
come back and say, this is what you should do. And, so, I'm fine with dropping it. I don't know. Eric, Charlie, what do you think?
I'd just as soon drop it.
Sounds fine to me.
You're okay with that, Mary? Okay.
What's the,
We're gonna drop it, so you take it off the website.
Yeah.
that's where that will come down from.
Right.
I have it posted, and then on our website, the advisory
That's
would
fine.
come down.
Let's hope we don't need it again.
Okay?
Anything else on that front?
Nope.
COVID? No, okay. So new and old business, I have a couple things here. One, how do people feel about reducing the number of meetings in the summer for July and August?
Not for that.
Eric, Charlie, okay if we
problem with the maintenance at all.
we drop it down to one? Okay, if something
Yeah.
urgent comes up. Jay and I had looked at the calendar a little bit and looked like the 17th might be the right date.
For July.
July, yes.
Okay.
You mean to have the next meeting?
Yeah.
July 17th, okay.
Would that work so this would be the meeting for June, July 17th would be the,
July 17th.
July
17th,
17th.
it's a Monday.
Yeah.
Erica, that fits for the first and the third. Well,
The first and the third.
3,
is
the
that
10th, and the 17th, so
Yeah.
we have this room for the 17th.
Right.
In the middle of the month,
Right, right.
is the board,
Yeah, it's nowhere near
Yep.
the holiday, so that looked good to us.
so July
Okay.
17th.
Two things, really for, I guess for Jay. One was the seasonal update, just, you'll find that material in front of you. Just the amount of work that the health department is be doing. We're talking about pools, we're talking about hotels,
Yep.
incredible lot of work.
Thank you. It's a snapshot. As of June 1st, hazmat, pools, motels, restaurants, tobacco, housing. I just, at some point, if you get a chance, I don't need to go, it's late right now, but just that you have this information in front of you. I didn't put it in your package because it hadn't been completed yet. It completed this afternoon. Just to take a look, I just want to applaud the staff, to include Erica and Christine at the front. It's the busiest time. There's an ebb and a flow to this office. This is peak time right now, and a lot of work is being pushed out. I just want the board to be aware that a lot happens on a very small staff. So a lot of good work is happening. It just gives you a sense of the work and keeping up before Memorial Day weekend. The pools that had to open, the restaurants that had to open, and they met everyone met that obligation. So it's terrific, and especially housing, the rental obligations.
Everyone wants it done yesterday, so there's a lot of pressure on the department.
lot of
Yeah,
direction.
it's great job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to pass that on to the staff. When you get a chance just to take a look at that, you'll see an extraordinary amount of work got done in a short amount of time.
I do have one question. The pools that haven't been inspected yet aren't open, right? They can't open until they've been inspected.
That's right, exactly right. Yep, and there's several, I believe, on there that haven't even applied yet. They will be applying, but the certifications, everything has to be in complete compliance before they can open. That's a good question.
Jay, how about giving 2 sentences about your idea about having the youth involved with the Board of Health, and we'll take it up for the next meeting. It's 7:30, so.
Yeah, it's late. I just had a thought. I just talked to the chair. I didn't know about, tomorrow morning, I'm going to go speak to the high school, to a health class. And it made me think, is there a chance, is there an opportunity to put, not to be board members, but to be, we call them even associate board members, maybe seniors in high school, a guy and a girl, male and a female, that might come and sit, whether they sit off to the side, adjunct board members, one, to educate them a little bit about what the Board of Health even does, and then maybe some input of what, to that demographic, what's important to them, and what issues that maybe the board might want to entertain or be part of that discussion. It's a thought. I would work over the summer. It wouldn't be anything that would be done till the fall. I would need the school department, their input in that nature. Just to say, not board members. You folks are the board members. You're the policy. They're not voting members. They may not even be on camera. Just to have a discussion. Individuals who are interested in health sciences, and they can give a perspective of that demographic. That was my thought. It might be helpful, and I think it would infuse some enthusiasm into the high school. I don't know where it could grow from that.
No, I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, I do too.
And maybe, maybe it's half year, or were you thinking a quarterly rotation or half-year rotation?
Hadn't even given, the board, that would be a discussion that we can talk about as this matures. To give that some thought. Eric also, I mean, you deal with youth, right?
Yeah.
Try to.
I think that sounds excellent.
Okay. I need some help on that. This is going to be a working process. A rotation that may make perfect sense, and they would then deliver that back. I got to tell you, I'm going to hear tomorrow morning. I don't think a lot of 16, 17-year-olds even know. We have building of doctors. What is it that public health does?
Right.
We're going to talk about that, and to have them sit and listen to even to the tobacco conversations that happened today.
And
That
then
would
they
open
can
their
tell
eyes.
their parents who probably don't know.
Yeah, they're right, exactly. That would open their eyes. So just food for thought.
Right.
Think about that amongst the board, what that would look like. I need your help on that, but nothing that's going to happen over the next, couple months. It'd be well into the fall before we could implement something like that. But just to give that some thought.
Yeah, even kids should know what a septic system is. Okay, so, okay, anything else, anyone, old, new? Let's have a motion to adjourn, please, someone.
I move we adjourn.
Second, someone.
Second.
Great, raise your hand, say aye. Adjourn. Thank you, everyone.